Hello there. So, today a little story time with Samuel. I'd like to talk to you guys about the one time I met the leader of Scientology, David Miscavige, and I had absolutely no idea who this little fella was. So here I was, this was 2005. In 2005, I had just arrived at St. Hill. I came when I was 13 years old, and this would have been 2005. I arrived on September the 3rd, and then of course in October was the IAS event. Now when I came to England, my English was not particularly great. I mean, I had a vocabulary of maybe 100 words, I could say a couple of sentences, and that was pretty much it. So between September and October I didn't really learn much more. And during the IAS event, or rather beforehand, because we, the cadets, so the Cadet org is an organization within the Sea organization for children, for people who are too young to join the actual Sea org. So they are required to go to the Cadet org. Now, as I understand it, they have abolished the Cadet org. There is no such thing as a Cadet org now anymore. But at that time, in 2005, we had the Cadet org. So I was in the Cadet org, and we got a so-called mission to help at the IAS event tent, and we didn't actually build a tent, but we helped to put up parts of the stage inside the tent, to put up all those hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of chairs. We helped with this one lady who came every year to do all the flowers and things like that. In any case, at this one day, I was there with two other cadets, with Sam and Ed, and all three of us were there to... The chairs were already put out, more or less, but we had to make sure they were properly spaced. So we were all given a piece of wood, and we used that wood to measure out the back of one chair to the back of the other chair, to make sure the distance is all the same. You know, all nicely in a row. But after a while, we realized, actually, my measuring stick was slightly shorter than that of Ed's, and but Ed's was slightly, but mine was, for example, slightly longer than that of Sam's, right? So each measuring stick had a different measurement, and so what happened was, I mean, we realized this, but then we just thought to ourselves, well, it's an easy task, because if we finish with this, we'll have to do something else, which might be annoying, so let's just continue with it. And so what happened was, I would measure out one row of chair, move back to the next, and then I would move on like that. Eventually, Ed from the front, he would come to the point where I already had measured, and then he would re-measure it, because of course his measuring stick was slightly smaller. And then afterwards, the same thing would happen with Sam. So this just shows you again how brilliantly organized Scientology is. So anyway, we were doing this busy work, literally, the whole day. And while we were doing that, suddenly there was a tap on my shoulder. So I turned around and I saw there was a man standing there with a little entourage. There were 3 or 4 other people there. And he was talking at me in English and said something. But what I did understand from whatever he said was, take a break. So I thought to myself, that's great. But then I looked at the lady who was already running towards me, talking to this man, and I was looking at her because she gave us the order to do this with the chair, and I had no idea who this guy was. I mean, I don't know if he was senior to her or not. No clue who this guy was. So she comes running over, and then he says something to her, and then she says something along the line, oh no, they need to finish this, or something like that. And then he said, he repeated what he said, and then suddenly her demeanor changed completely, and she said, oh yes, go and break. And then she chased me, Ed and Sam away, and then we went to the side, to one of the side entrances to sit there and have 15 minutes break or whatever it was. And Sam and Ed were very excitedly telling me, oh my god, you met David Miscavige, you were talking to David Miscavige, what did he say? And I was quite bewildered because I had no idea who this person was. Later on, of course, when I was watching the event, I realized, oh, this must be a bigwig, because he was up there on the stage. So that is a rather amusing, a little embarrassing encounter of David Miscavige. Overall, it was a pretty good encounter because he gave me a break, so I didn't have any bad experience with him. Later on in my, shall we say, career in the SEOG, I encountered him 2 more times because he came into the stables. So the stables is the place at the property of St. Hill Manor where the food for the staff is being cooked and served, and it used to be an actual stable. It was built at the end of the 19th century, somewhere around 1880s. It's a beautiful Victorian building made with red bricks, and the front of it is clad in sandstone. So it's a very nice building, and I was working there in the galley, which is a ship's term for the kitchen. Remember, we are in the SEOG, so everything has to have unnecessary ship terms. So I was working in the galley, in the kitchen there, with Christopher. He was my senior, Christopher Simons. He was the chief steward at the time. And we were working there, and I believe, actually, I'm pretty sure, he was marinating or basting a pork loin. And his back was turned. So if I were Chris, I'm looking now at the wall, and there was the rack of spices, and he was basting it, and behind me was the main door. And he was working there, and I would have been over there from his point of view, and I was cutting some vegetables or something like that. And we both heard how the door was opened, but nobody entered. And he just finished the basting of the pork loin, and then he turned around and dropped the pork into the tray, and then he looked up, and there was David Miscavige with his whole entourage, and there were different executives from CMO, the Commoners Messenger Organization, which is one of the highest organizations there is on the St. Hill base. I think there were the 3 top execs there with him, as well as his execs that he took along with him. And well, then we said hello, hello sir, and good evening sir, whatever it was. And we had a little, and Christopher and Mr. Miscavige, they were talking with each other for a little bit about how he's doing, if Christopher is going to course, which of course he wasn't, because we were alone in the kitchen. And David Miscavige was quite cross about that. He did turn to the CMO being the commanding officer of CMO, and was telling her, I don't remember her surname, but her first name was Maya, and was telling her, that this is ridiculous, and there needs to be more staff in the galley. And she said, oh yes sir, and we'll make sure this happens, and so on and so forth. Now this year, let me see what year this would have been. So I finished the EPF, the boot camp, in 2008. It could have been in 2009. It could have, but it could also have been in 2008 that he came the first time. It could have been in 2008, because I don't think at the time when he came that I was properly posted yet, meaning I wasn't assigned the actual job. I think I was still a so-called expediter. That is a post you usually get, a position in the organization once you finished your basic training, and it hasn't been quite determined where you're going to be put, and so you expedite, so you help wherever help is needed until the executives and whoever is in charge of that in Division 1 would be of the organization, because Division 1 is responsible for the staff and putting the staff on the right posts and so on and so forth, until they decide where to put you. Usually you expedite. And I'm pretty sure when he came in the first time, was still an expediter. So this must have been then in 2008. And then he came either the following year, 2009, or the year after, 2010. He came again into the galley. Same situation, I was doing something on the side, Christopher was doing something there, and then he opened the door, and then the same, oh, hello again, sir, and nice to see you, and all the niceties. And then David Miscavige asked again, are there no more staffs in here? And then the CMO said, well, look for there, sir. Samuel has now been posted at the stables, which was true, but I wasn't posted in the galley. I was posted as the canteen, I see. So I was running this little staff canteen, which is like a kiosk. And so technically speaking, it was true. I was posted at the stables, because in the stables itself was the staff canteen. So it was true. And she very proudly said it like that, which was kind of sad. But in Christopher, to his credit, he had some balls. He said, well, yes, sir, but he was here also last time when you visited. We are not any more staff in here. And but then I think it was the chief officer, CLO, so the Continental Liaison Office. That's the same organization that Christopher and I were part of. And the chief officer, he is responsible for division 4, 5, and 6. You have 7 division, the 7th division being the executive division, and then you have the supercargo, who is above division 1, 2, and 3, and then the chief officer, who is above division 4, 5, and 6. And I believe the chief officer said, yes, but look, sir, we got them a new oven. And they did. They got us a German Rational oven, which at the time was high technology. Now you find them all over the place, but at that time, this was in 2009, 2010, it was a very new, very, very high-tech machine that we got, and it cost somewhere around £8,000, this machine, so this was quite something. So it was great we got a new machine, a new oven, because the oven before that was an oven from like 1974, 75, something like that. And when you had anything in there that you roasted for too long, it became slightly grey. Because the fans they were turning, they were slightly bented, and then it would just scrape every time a very slight amount of metal dust, and it would just go on the food. And if it was in there for too long, we had slightly grey chicken or whatever it was. So anyway, we were glad that was gone. We got a new oven. But the chief officer actually said, yes, but look, sir, we got them a new oven. And Mr. Miscavige was not very pleased with that. But nothing more happened after that. I mean, we did eventually, when I left the SEOG in 2012, we were, I think, 3 people in there. There was this one lady, a German lady, who joined us in the stables. Now, when I left, I don't know if she was actually posted, so I don't know if she actually had an actual position in the stables, or if she was still on this expediting position, because this expediting position is supposed to be only for a couple of weeks, because usually before you even start the EPF, the Estate Project 4, which is the boot camp to join the SEOG, you usually have already had a discussion, people have already decided where you're going to go, so it's usually, you're not for a very long time an expediter, but she may have been still an expediter when I left, so only one more person was there. And there are actually policies from Hubbard, the founder of Scientologies. These are so-called FOs, flag orders, and these are written black on white paper, black ink on white paper. And these policies are only for SEOG members. They cannot be seen by anybody else apart from SEOG member. And he wrote several of these orders, of these flag orders, about the galley. And one of them was, I don't recall it exactly, but it said something along the lines of, per 100 staff, there need to be 3 cooks. That's how I recall what the policy said. It was something along the lines. And just a little reminder, there were 350, at least 350, sometimes up to 370 staff. It depended if we had outer org trainees, so these would have been people from other organizations, lesser organization, to come at St. Joe to do some sort of training there. So somewhere between 350 370 people we had to feed every day, and we were 2 people, or at the end we were then 3 people, so you can do the math, that's not quite right. So my encounter with Miscavige was actually not all that negative, but yeah, that was my little story time with Samuel, the SP chef. Hope you found that interesting, maybe even amusing, entertaining. Be a darling, give this video a like if you enjoyed this sort of thing, if you found it amusing, interesting, or whatever. And yeah, consider subscribing. There will be more content, of course, and there are going to be videos that I will do in German, because there is unfortunately a certain lack of German representation of the ex-Scientology community on YouTube, and these will always be shown as D. I always put a D at the beginning and at the end of the title of the YouTube video, and then you know, okay, that's in German. I don't know how else I can do it. Maybe I'll figure out some other way of doing it so it's a bit clearer, obvious, and easier to find the German ones. Anyway, enough of this rambling. I wish you a most marvelous day, and goodbye.